Here's what the eighth principle is. It is known as the generative principle, or the principle which governs creation, which actually is the causal factor that goes into effect and generates the result that we say that we want. The generative principle is care. This means, what are you giving attention and helping to grow? What are you focusing upon? Because what you're focusing upon, that's what's ultimately getting generated, getting created, and growing.
Carl Jung said in Liber Novus, "Great is he who is in love, since love is the present act of the great creator, the present moment of the becoming and lapsing of the world. Mighty is he who loves." This is described by Mozart in the Magic Flute when he says, "I am a prince," the prince says, "I am a prince, but like a lover without a true love, a ruler without a true purpose can never amount to anything until he uncovers his heart's desire." Carl Jung said in Memories, Dreams, Reflections, "I sometimes feel that Paul's words, 'Though I speak with the tongues of men and of angels and have not love,' might well be the first condition of all cognition and the quintessence of divinity itself. Whatever the learned interpretation may be of the sentence, 'God is love,' the words affirm the complexio oppositorium of the Godhead. In my medical experience, as well as in my own life, I have again and again been faced with the mystery of love and have never been able to explain what it is." He also said, "Being apart, man cannot grasp the whole. He is at its mercy. He may assent to it or rebel against it, but he is always caught up by it and enclosed within it. He is dependent upon it and is sustained by it. Love is his light and his darkness, whose end he cannot see." Shadow integration is the process of bringing the hidden parts of the self into consciousness. That's the whole point. It's to join the opposites, right? The conscious with the unconscious, to illuminate, to become conscious of the secret desires, vices, and even virtues hidden in the shadow that have been repressed there. So you can get to the next stage. The purpose of shadow work is ultimately to realize so that you can purify. If your shadow work doesn't eventually bring you into this purification stage of the mind, then you're doing it wrong. Its purpose is to set the stage for and usher in the purification phase, right? That's the albedo phase of the great work, the second phase of individuation. Love is the lifeblood empowering every stage of this process of individuation. And that's what we're going to talk about today. This love, not the emotion, right? Something more akin to agapic love, right? Agape, something closer to the Eros Jung talks about. So we're going to talk about this shadow work habit. This is a fascinating psychological tool that the Freemasons borrowed from the ancient Christians and perhaps elsewhere as well, right? They claim that it was passed down from the ancient Egyptians, the Indians, and the Greeks, and perhaps that's right as well. And it's something they only teach at the 32nd degree, which is the highest level. Now, quick disclaimer here, I'm not a Freemason, and I actually don't agree with a lot of the things that I've read about Freemasonry, but they've at very least stumbled upon a very powerful truth and an important truth that doesn't come from their tradition alone. And this is called the generative principle. This principle that we're speaking of, it's the G in their famous symbol, and it's said to stand for the generative principle, geometry, God, or the great architect of the universe. The creative principle or force from which everything emanates. That's what this refers to. Basically, with the masculine and feminine generative or creative forces, God is said to have created all things. And to create anything, you as an individual must have this generative principle, this creative force. Essentially, to create your magnum opus, right? Your life's goal, your life's purpose. Care or love, the highest form of this love, is the fundamental force required. Again, this is something more like the spirit of agape that we see in the scriptures. Love as a fundamental energy of God, and even God himself, who is this capital L love. This impulse, right, the definition being the driving or motivating force, is love or care, as in what you truly love or deeply care about. This is described by Mozart in The Magic Flute when he says, I am a prince, the prince says, I am a prince, but like a lover without a true love, a ruler without a true purpose can never amount to anything until he uncovers his heart's desire. Now, that may sound like a silly or cliche thing in our modern English language. We don't go around talking about our heart's desire so much, but you know precisely what he's talking about, right? That heart's desire, it's something close to passion, but it's something more than mere passion. This true love, this high love in your heart, this heart's desire, is the desire of the soul, the love, the care of yourself. It is at the core of this principle. It is the driving force of every single thing that is created. Hence, the generative principle of creation.
The generative principle is care. This means, what are you giving attention and helping to grow? What are you focusing upon? Because what focus you're focusing upon, that's what's ultimately getting generated, getting created, and growing. And this doesn't mean be ignorant of what's going on in the world and don't look at anything that's negative because you're going to feed that and give power to it. That's not what it means. Okay? That means, you know what you're feeding? In that instance, if you want to do that, you're feeding ignorance. And that's what's going to grow. It's the exact opposite that the New Agers want you to believe that it is. By ignoring the negative, you are ensuring that more of it occurs. You are fueling it by ignorance, ensuring that it grows and takes over. What care has to be looked at here as is, this is what you're giving your energy to. This is what you're focused upon. This is what you actually care enough about to do, to spend your time on, to put your attention on, to manifest in the world. That's what I'm talking about as care, okay? That's what generates our experience in the aggregate. Most people don't care about what's really happening. Therefore, it is an impossibility for us in the aggregate to change the direction of energy, to change the direction of consciousness, and ultimately to get what we say we want. That's how the real law of attraction works, all right? Here's how it actually operates. The lost principle is the dynamic of care. What we care about on a day-to-day basis acts as the driving force of our thoughts and actions. Care, knowledge, action. Those are the steps, okay? And all three of those have to be in place. All three. That's what unity consciousness is. It's unifying thoughts, emotions, and actions. The three aspects of consciousness, such that there is no contradiction between them. Our thoughts, what we say, what we think, how we feel, and how we act are one and the same. There's no contradiction. That's unity consciousness. What we care enough to put our will behind, okay? So again, heart, mind, guts. Guts is the will, the action, the masculine principle. That's what gets things done ultimately in the physical domain. What we care enough to put our will behind, and that's driven by the care. That's the generator or the pump that drives the will. What we care enough to put our will behind is ultimately what gets created or manifested in our world.
And the stronger it is, the stronger the actions and thus the masterpiece of your magnum opus.